Hello, good evening. My name is Imogen Caterer and welcome to the Nous Sommes Human webinar. Tonight we're going to be exploring what it means to be human. I have my special guests with me, Rudy and Jenny Kennard. These two have travelled thousands upon thousands of miles investigating and understanding the human mind, which really is very transformative. And they're going to give you a taste of what they've learned during this webinar. I'd like to thank a number of people for helping me put this webinar on. And if you're on the broadcast page, you can see links to their websites. They include Michael Neal, Leanne Brooke Taylor, Steve Light, sorry, apologies, and Leanna Rose, who is actually helping us this evening looking at the broadcast page and making sure everything's great. You'll also find my website, www.hopecatalyst.com, and Rudy and Jenny's websites, which are threeprinciplesmovies.com, which is an extraordinary site and gives on video form some of what they learned from their travels and covers how this understanding can make a great difference in things as well as relationships, mental health, prisons, education. Just a huge wealth of video there. innatewellbeing.co.uk is another one of theirs. Tonight, yes, there will be questions from the audience. I'll be very welcome to see what you would like to know more on this topic. I'm going to hold them back, though, for about 15 minutes or so, just so that Rudy and Jenny can really warm to their theme. So this webinar has a slightly unusual name of Nous Sommes Human, because it's inspired by those dreadful attacks in Paris, both on Charlie Hebdo, the cartoon magazine, and also in Kosher Supermarket, and there were several others in fact as well. So just to start Rudy and Jenny off with a tough one, when there's so much difference between two groups, where we think just so differently, and we get into such strife about it, really, where is the hope? How can we get something out of being human rather than just conflict?
Well, I think the hope comes from the neutral fact that it's not what we think, but it's that we think. Because as human beings, we're all going to have different thinking. And that different thinking creates the amazingly beautiful, diverse range of all the humans we have walking around on Earth now. But there's a neutral, impersonal truth that works from the inside out, meaning that all of us have the power to think, giving us the ability to think whatever we like. But all of us are the same because all of us have the same power to think, and we're going to use that differently to create the uniqueness of what we think. Now, when we're not focusing on the content of what we think and trying to get other people to think like us, but see the neutral fact that all of us think and whatever we think is going to look real for us, there's a way in which we can look beyond thinking to our true human connection. Because beyond thought, we're all human. And when I say thought, thinking creates beliefs, convictions, ideas, concepts. But beliefs, convictions, ideas, and concepts, although they're created via our thinking, all of us think, we're all human. And I think for me, humanity's evolution is going to be working towards understanding the nature of how that works. And when we really insightfully see that, we just work so much better. Because I think for me, I had a lot of thinking that could create division. You know, this person and that person, me and him and her. And I think as I started to look beyond what I was thinking, beyond my beliefs, beyond my concepts, and saw the nature how I was creating all of it from the inside out, a lot of that fell away. The division fell away, the separateness fell away, and I started having a more heartfelt, authentic experience of life that doesn't involve excluding people, that doesn't involve judging people, that doesn't involve feeling superior to people, because everyone became different versions of me walking about.
I think it's on an individual level that we change and we see different, and that's how world change will happen. And I know that just on a small scale, you know, myself and Rudy being married, coming together, very different worldviews, very different ideas, and how we've, with this understanding, managed to embrace the diversity between us and not try and get one another to be the same, to get along. And that has spread out into the rest of our family, community, and people that we work with. Because as we wake up to our own humanity and realise that we make mistakes and we get lost, it connects us to all of humanity. That we're all doing, you know, we're all doing the best that we can with how we see the world, but to know that there is something deeper connecting us, the hope, and it does start with, so it's with each more harmonious relationship. So it's a lot of feedback.
Okay, great. I'm getting a warning. You've got a lot of feedback. I don't know whether you're going to need to mic up or something. It might be a bit hard with two of you on the same computer.
Let's try it. Hang on a moment. We'll plug some earphones in and see if that's any better. Okay, hang on one moment. Where is it?
Yeah, just building on that theme with my kind of own example. You know, I've been kind of promoting this webinar, and I'm not immune to this. So there are moments when I'm kind of, you know, hell bent. This is the thing you have to go to tonight. I just remember kind of going up to an events page, and the events page, and it says, you know, are you coming, or maybe, or something else, a number invited. And I went up there and looked at all the maybes and went, maybe? It was kind of, oh, how could you be saying maybe to this, you know? And I was just stuck in my thinking. I was quite aware that I was kind of in a slightly stuck place. And it was interesting that when I loosened out of that stuck place on occasions, can't say I always do, but some new ideas, something new came in, some new thought. I had some kind of quite inspired moments when I let the stress go, because I was getting so focused on this has to be, you know, my way or the highway, you know, which I think was a really extreme example of that. Was what happened in Charlie Hebdo's offices. Was somebody said it's my way or the highway and shot people, you know. But you can step back from that and be in this flowy, you know, inspired place, and just let, you know, thoughts drift. And you know what? It's technically meditation, but it's not. You know, it's not a ritual of meditation, which often stresses people out. It's just going into the flow. So yeah. I
was going to say something else that occurred to me was through learning about the principles, we've got to travel around the world and film different populations of people who've been learning about this. And I know that the first time we went into the jails to film, I got to see my own judgment and my own fear, you know, them and me and them being different from me. And it was incredible because within sort of 5 minutes of being in there and listening to, it was actually a female prison, listening to the women speak, I suddenly saw that they were the same as me. They had made really poor choices and ended up in jail, but they too got lost in their own thinking. They too, you know, lived out of that experience. And I suddenly realised that we could connect on a different level. You know, when judgment falls off of your mind, you get to connect with other human beings who are different from you. And I feel like I noticed that, you know, I had my own ideas when we went into business to film the business people and who they are and what they are like, and suddenly again those barriers break down when you aren't looking at what's different about other people and you look to what's the same. I've loved attending the conferences that happen annually in the UK, where we have people from all different faiths in the same room, sharing in a deep understanding and respecting one another's ideas and beliefs and religions. That's inspiring. I sit there and feel that's hopeful, because this is a small group. It's gone from being 150, I think, 4 years ago to being 600 people last year. But that's the hope for humanity, that we can all continue forward with different beliefs, but in harmony with respect.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, it's really powerful. I mean, have you got any other examples of this kind of happening around the world for us?
Well, we've been into I think you mentioned at the start, jails, prisons, communities, schools, primary schools, drug and alcohol rehabilitation, soldier, veteran rehabilitation, corporations. Just the list is endless. And one of the places we went to that really affected me was we went to a place called Lockwood Gardens in California. And it used to be, at some stages, the 4th highest homicide rate per capita in the whole of America. It was generally around 11th, but sometimes the 4th highest. And it was a haven for drug, alcohol abuse, prostitution, gang warfare. I mean, it really wasn't in a very healthy place at all. And so when we first trained in this, a chap called Dr. Roger Mills came over and he spoke to us about him working within this community. And he said within 3 years of the project, the community got healthy, prostitution vanished, drug deals vanished, and there hadn't been a homicide since, and there still hasn't been a homicide since the project started. Now, we had the sheer luck of actually visiting that community project about 4.5 years ago and interviewing Jerry Williams, who was the police officer who was kind of partly responsible for that transformation. And what he said to me is very simple. He just said that the problems wasn't to do with prostitution and crime and drugs. The problem was that the community wasn't healthy. It was a health problem. And he said when people got healthy, it all vanished. And it's a bit like if you take our physical body. If I've got, you know, cuts all over my body, that's not the cause of the problem. The immune system will heal that by itself. It's like my immune system is my response to the cuts, and a response to the logic of harming other people, the logic of wanting to be separate, be better than, comes down to correcting the logic of how we work as human beings from the inside out. When you look in that direction, all the symptoms of misunderstanding, like, you know, what's been happening in France, just miraculously dissolve. I mean, we've seen this. I mean, again, in North Carolina, there's another community project there. I mean, crime went down 64%. Grade point averages went up. Parental involvement in school went up. I mean, we've seen this in corporate populations, in community populations, in health populations. Any big population of people when they get mentally healthier, and my way of describing that is that they're seeing less separation between them and the other people walking around. People just get on. But it all comes down to the very core understanding of seeing how we're creating our experience of life from the inside out. When you really look in that direction, things get an awful lot better. So for me, as a personal belief, I'm incredibly hopeful for humanity.
And I think I just wanted to say what we mean by saying inside out is that our reality of life is brought to us via thinking. It's created through our own thinking, which is how we have 7 billion different people all living in different experiences, because their experiences are coming from thought in the moment. And I think we've lived in a world where we think that our circumstances or events and people can make us feel something that we don't want to feel. And what this understanding has brought to me and is hopeful is that you see that reality is created from the inside. You get to see the thought-created nature of your experience. You get to see how your ideas change and how beliefs are formed. And it doesn't mean that you have to drop beliefs or you know, come up with new beliefs, but you get to see them as they are, as thought-created, and they're your thought-created beliefs. And I think with that you see, oh, other people also have thought-created beliefs and ways. And it seems built into us that when we understand, it feels more natural for us to have acceptance and goodwill, and just it makes no sense to judge another human being for thinking differently from you, because you realise we all think differently. And I'm really hopeful. Because I know from the news we hear about these terrible things happening, but at the same time we're seeing on a small scale huge change. You know, within schools, within children as young as 10, that we've filmed, seeing the nature of this and their friendships growing, their acceptance for other human beings growing, and just that to me suggests that as a country, as a world, as humanity, we start to wake up to the nature of our own minds. It will change everything. It will, where there's been disharmony, there'll be harmony. It's thinking that we're different and separate and either better or worse.
So I just lost your sound there a little bit, but I mean, it is just this understanding. It's kind of peeling back the layer and seeing how it's all thought created. Because I mean, I go out and teach. So I'm a coach. I go out and teach this stuff, and that's sometimes a stumbling point for people. They feel they have to intervene. They have to unpick the thinking. Whereas this just kind of lifts your attachment to it, and I think from there it goes to a more heart-centered place. That's how I say it, I suppose. It's a heart-opening thing, and we know when we are open-hearted that things change. Just naturally seem different. Does that sound like your experience? And by the way, I'm opening questions. If people want to put some questions in, then I'll take a look at them in a moment.
And you use the word natural, Imogen. I mean, our company is called Innate Wellbeing, innate meaning natural, so we have this natural propensity to self-correct, if you will. It's a bit like, I don't know anybody who has got, I know, really angry, for instance, and remained angry for the rest of their lives. Like at some stage our thinking changes, and we don't do that. You know, like the cut analogy, I don't heal my cuts. The natural body system does that for us. We don't really change our minds just change. and you can try and keep the same feeling, but you have to keep trying to remember what it is to get the same feeling, because thought and feeling are one entity, different parts of one entity. You can't have any feeling without the corresponding thinking. And so just because you think it and it feels real and it looks real doesn't mean to say it is real. For instance, you can look at a magician and it looks like he can walk through walls, it looks like they can fly, it looks like they can manifest things in their hand, but you know it's an illusion. And our thinking works like that. We think something and pop, it looks real. Now, seeing the nature that we don't have to believe every thought we have, every thought we have, it doesn't mean to say other people should think like us. We start, like you rightly said, Imogen, kind of detaching a little bit from what we think and seeing the power of how we think. And when this happens, we're not so tied to our beliefs, we're not so convicted in what we think is true, and we're more able to tolerate other people's beliefs, thought-created ideas. I'm not dismissing ideas and beliefs, but all of it is created neutrally from thinking. And so it allows you to step back from your own thinking and be able to do that with other people. And I remember we spoke to a facilitator who worked with a gang, and this gang member stood up and said, I'm going to make the names up because I can't remember the exact names, but he said, you know, you are Blood, you are Crypt, you are this, you are that, to all the other guys in the jail. And he just said, from now on, we're all the same, let's go and play basketball. They walked out into the yard and played basketball, because in that moment he saw he was holding these thought-created divisions of everybody. But we're all the same, we just think that we're different. We can have beards, you know, we can have things over our faces, we can be different colours, we can look different, but take away the visuals, I don't know, like we're no different from anybody else. And like what Jenny said, when we went into the female jail and the male jail, I had a division in my mind thinking, oh, they're inmates and I'm not, and what they're going to be like. And within about 3 minutes, I realized I'd been holding judgment in my mind, and they were exactly the same as me. Exactly the same as me. And the only difference, like Jenny said, is they made some decisions, probably in the spur of a moment, that landed them in jail. And I hadn't, so I wasn't in jail. But given their situation, I may be in there as well. Because we can only do the best we can do with the thinking that we have in the moment. And that's it, really. And how could we judge other people for that?
And it's that, and one thing that's coming out is that universality to this, that it affects so many things, but it's because it's of the basic nature of being human, isn't it?
And I think it's, I know that I've always felt very loving towards my family. I'd have kind of prided myself on that, but it wasn't really until I came across this understanding that I realized that the level of love I felt for my family didn't have to stop there. You didn't have like a certain amount of love and you needed to keep it for the people you saw as closest to you. That actually it's something that the more you express and the more that you share love, the more you get. And through understanding this, I have had experiences with family members and strangers where I've just fallen out of my normal thinking and just felt tremendous love and connection. So for a stranger, that surprised me. But when you start to see us as the same, when you don't see separation, it is your brother, your sister, your mother in just different disguises, that brings us together. And I used to laugh at things like that and think it was all, you know, new agey or something, but it's not until you get to experience it for yourself, when you wake up to who we are as human beings and that connection. Like, I don't care about being cool anymore or saying the right thing. I just love connecting with other human beings. I'm so interested to hear about different people's beliefs and ideas. I've loved getting to know people in the community of different religions and finding out about their rituals and why they do what they do. It's fascinating to me. It doesn't scare me anymore. But when we kind of live in a world where we think how we think is right, then other people's beliefs and ideas scare us because it's different. And one of the communities that we filmed, I think it was called Poco Way, and they had like a Mexican part of the community, Vietnamese, and then two other populations I can't remember.
Afro-Caribbean.
Yeah, and they were all terrified of one another. So when the project went in, they ended up doing a potluck, so everyone bringing food together, and they ended up getting the children to come. So they got the children on board, and then the parents were invited, and suddenly they were like, we look really different and we sound very different. We're mothers and sisters and brothers and fathers, and we're all the same. And they got a connection beyond what they looked like and how they spoke and their beliefs and their religion, and just got along and had fun together. And suddenly a community of people that normally look down rather than acknowledging one another through fear started to look each other in the eye and smile and just see another human being. And that is what this brings to us. We get to see other human beings, not, you know, the colour of someone's skin or their religion or the way that they dress or whether they're able-bodied or have disabilities. It's suddenly you start to just see that we're all human beings having a human experience, and we can share in that. And I think that fear that I used to have of other people who are different from me or has fallen away through seeing that commonality, through seeing that we are creating our experience in the same way. That's what unites us. It doesn't matter what we've created, it's the fact that there's this power creating that we get to look to.
Anything to add, Rudy, or shall I give you another question? I don't have any audience questions yet, by the way.
No.
I'm going to make one up.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I think coming back to the understanding that Jenny mentioned
you say.
Is so coming back to the understanding Jenny mentioned is, I really thought that the world, my relationship, my finances, my job, my boss, my family made me feel something. If my mum wasn't so negative, I wouldn't be so upset. If I earned more, then I would have a nicer life. Like I wasn't blaming the outside world, but I misunderstood. I was thinking that something outside of me was giving me an experience of life. But what I've come to realize is that we don't have an experience of life. We have an experience of our thinking about life. It's very different to thinking that you're having an experience of life to knowing that you're experiencing your thinking about life. Because what I find is that as my thinking changes, my experience changes, you know. I mean, I think it was 2 nights ago, I was thinking about my business and thinking, oh, I'm such a failure, I'm never going to amount to anything, and people don't like me. And then in the morning, I thought about my business and thinking, oh my goodness, it's so successful, and we're getting loads of people on courses, and people really like us. And my business didn't physically change overnight, it's just my thinking changed, and I had a different experience of my business. And so when you're including your thinking in the calculation of your experience of life, you get a truer perspective. And when you have a truer perspective of life, that is when the commonality, the inclusiveness, the non-judgment comes in. Because you see that you are creating, you are literally like a magician, creating moment to moment your experience of your life in that moment. That is how moment to moment your experience changes. And one of the stories Jenny tells is that she can be driving a car and she can think of me and think, oh, Rudy's so lovely and he's such a great husband. And then she can remember something I did in the past, look at me again, and then I look like a troll or a monster and I'm so irritating. And then that thinking goes and she has another experience. So we're living in this moment-to-moment thought experience of our experience of life. But most of us don't know that. We're thinking life is the one creating our experience, but it's actually us. So as we wake up to that truth, that moment-to-moment experience of life, you start kind of having more autonomy with your thinking, that when you're not feeling so good and life's looking bad, you don't take it seriously because you know that you've got something to do with your experience, and you know that leave it alone and it kind of changes and you have a different experience. And you know, one of my childhood heroes, Robin Williams, like when he got his Oscar or Academy Award and you said to him, do you think you'd ever commit suicide? He'll probably say to you, what the hell are you talking about? Of course I wouldn't commit suicide. But he did, because in that moment his thinking was giving him an experience that he trusted and acted on. Now, I'm not saying don't trust your thinking, I'm just saying be aware that your thinking isn't necessarily true. It's just bringing to life an experience that isn't an instruction on you or life or other people, but it's a construction of you, your life, and other people. And you see the fluidity of thought, and it just changes, and everything in the physical world, you know, walls, you know, like a tree isn't appearing and disappearing, there's still physical things in the world, but your experience of them will be very, very fluid depending on your thinking in the moment. And I know that doesn't sound much, but that one thing I'm talking about has pretty much, and I honestly say this hand on heart, has turned my life into some kind of mild horror movie, into kind of a bit like a rom-com, where things are kind of better and amusing, and it's just a much nicer experience of life. And I haven't done that by changing the things in the external world. I've done that by understanding the nature of how I'm creating my experience of things in the external world.
Which brings me nicely to what would have been my next question. Well, this is my next question. I've heard rightly or wrongly, there's like two major elements that seems to bring out extremism. You guys okay? One is this them us thing, which you've covered very nicely. And another one is feeling a victim. You get somebody who's just hooked and then they try and laugh their way out of it. And how does this understanding kind of affect that idea that we're victims?
That's a great question.
I guess I can only talk from a personal experience, but before I came across this understanding, I had lived most of my life feeling like a victim of circumstance, of a mean older sister. I blamed her for my problems, I blamed my family for my problems, I blamed what I looked like for my problems. I felt inadequate and terrible, and I blamed everything else in the world, and it had a huge impact on me. I struggled with depression, eating disorders, which then got in the way of my connection to others, and just being, I didn't feel like I was really living. So to come across this and hear that actually my thinking had something to do with my experience was so shocking to me, and so kind of, I just stood back, and for some reason I didn't blame myself. I just saw I was doing the best I could, but actually I was a victim of my own thinking, a victim of my own thought created nightmares, or daymares as people call them. And there was something about that suddenly I felt tremendous freedom and power, that I had thus far created a life of unhappiness and disconnection from the world. But from that moment forward, that there was the possibility and potential for new thought that could create a completely different experience of life. And so suddenly I went from feeling victimized and sorry for myself to feeling empowered and an incredible sense of love and acceptance for who I was as a human being. I could look back at people in my life, things I'd done in my life, with compassion and love rather than judgment and blame. That's just, a personal example, but from seeing people in the jails saying, I know I am in here because of the choices I made. Whereas before they learned about this, they would have blamed everyone else for why they ended up in jail. So for people to be able to take responsibility for their own actions and their own thinking, suddenly this idea of being a victim kind of falls away, and people are empowered that they can change, that life can be different, that just because of who they have been doesn't mean they cannot move forward as different people.
Well, I think if you live in the innocent misunderstanding that the world, the people, the situation is making you feel like you do, you're going to be a victim because you've got no power. There's nothing you can do because these forces are making you feel something. When you true empowerment is seeing the truth of how we work. True empowerment is seeing that, oh, the outside world is coming to me via thinking, giving me an experience. So now there's this link between you and the world, if you see what I mean. Sydney Banks called it the missing link. You start realizing that you have unlimited potential to change your situation. You have unlimited potential to see people different. That wouldn't have been there if you're living in a misunderstanding of where your experience is coming from. And so, like Jen, I had a shocking upbringing and parents divorced and bullied and, all the rest of it. But what I'm really seeing now is that whatever I think, I'm going to feel. And I see the illogic of thinking stuff from the past, not because I don't want to, but because I just see, like, if you stick your hand in a fire, why would you want to keep doing that? It seems illogical to kind of go there now. And also that kind of thinking doesn't even rise into my consciousness now, because we have the potential to become or do anything we want. The clearer we see that we are in the driver's seat, we have the power to change our experience, because it works from in us, it works from within us out, not outside in. And it's very liberating for people.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes see people, they kind of get it, that they're creating it now. They still think they're quite victims of the past, though. I mean, what do you say about that? Because we have such a cultural thing of, if this happens to you, you're damaged forever, or, oh, it's my bad family dynamics when I was a kid, and I'm scarred from that. What do you say about that?
At the risk of being very controversial, you have a person who feels that they are damaged, has thinking about the past that's carried forward in time to their present via their thinking, and that is what's giving them their feeling in the present moment. If you think something from the past, you're going to feel it in the present. So thought time travels. We can't physically time travel, but thought can time travel. And the victimization, the hurtness, the brokenness that we can feel in the present moment, all it is thought carried through time. It's not actually true, because beyond thought, we're actually spiritual beings, meaning that we're not the stuff that we think. We're the universal power source that allows us to have thought. We're the universal power source that allows us to be conscious or aware. We're the universal power source that allows us to enlivens us, to make us alive. Where we stretch from one end of the universe to the other, like we're not just what we think. And when we see how fluid thought is, that we don't really necessarily need to trust everything we think. There's a way in which we kind of see thought as it is, and we go beyond thought, personal thinking at least, to something that is truly more foundational, more truly us. And that's the thing that is the commonality of humanity, because we're all the same. We're all the same thing with different eyes.
And I think I know that I
as I get it,
labels and I would.
Difficulty hearing you. Say that again, Jenny.
Sorry, there's a bit of a time delay in for.
Sorry. I was just say I know that I'd been given lots of labels and told that I would always struggle. I'd struggle with depression. I would struggle with eating disorders, and that was what I thought I was stuck with. So I sat in on a 3-day course with Dr. Roger Mills, who's a psychologist from America who's done all these community projects to tell me that I was not my thinking, that I was not bound by what I'd thought before or by labels, that I could not be broken. I could have broken thinking that would look real and I would feel it, but I could not be broken. And that changed everything for me, because I'd felt like a broken human being, that there was something wrong with me, that I was different. And suddenly having a thought problem, rather than it being about me and who I was, connected me to other people, because we all have our own thought-created nightmares that we live out of. Some more extreme than others, but we feel them as if they are true. And to see that no one can be broken, they can think that they're broken. That really, really woke me up, and I keep using that word, empowered. It empowered me to move forward in a different direction, in a different life, knowing where my experience was generated and feeling connected to other human beings who are all in the same boat as me.
So I just had a kind of smidgen of another kind of topic that comes up, which is about whether you take life personally or not. It's close to victimhood, isn't it? That whether you get stuck and you think, oh, because that's happened, that must make me bad or not, not good enough or what have you, and we turn it in and we make it personal, whereas things not working out, it's just part of the human experience, isn't it? And we're all like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I remember watching this TED talk by this guy called Pinker, and it's probably one of my favourite TED talks. And it wasn't because he was polished and articulate and funny and charismatic. It's because you could tell that he was absolutely, I won't swear, he was having a hard time being up there. His hands were shaking, he was stumbling over his words a bit. And I think he was terrified talking in front of the cameras and people. But I love that talk because he did it anyway. You know, he was genuinely being an authentic human being. But what he had to say was tremendous. Like, he looked at all the research over history of how, as a species, are we evolving or are we getting more violent and warlike? And what he found was indisputable evidence that we're evolving as a species, surprisingly. Dictatorships down, democracies up, wars down. I mean, it's just, I've got it here, but we probably haven't got time, so I won't read it. If you Google Pinker, Pink and the R TED Talk, he kind of says it all in the talk. But coming back to this example, like, he was terrified, but he did it anyway. And I think truly being human isn't being amazingly good at things. It's actually not being good at things and doing just doing it anyway. Because everything that we've done, we've had quite a bit of fear doing it. But you see the nature of how your mind works. You don't really trust the kind of thinking that will put you off doing something that would be really helpful for other people and yourself. You just kind of do it anyway. So there's a flow state of mind, a little bit, that you mentioned earlier, Imogen, whereby you can have thinking, but it doesn't mean to say that it's true. It doesn't mean to say that you have to act on it. And there is something kind of moving you forward through experiences of life that is ultimately beneficial for yourself and others. And when you think of the historical figures who's really helped humanity, like Martin Luther King or Gandhi, I mean, there's a lot of them out there. They've been in some pretty, dire circumstances. They've probably had an awful lot of insecure thinking, but they've gone ahead and done it anyway. Because, again, the truth of our experiences is that just because we're thinking it doesn't mean to say it's true. It just means to say that we're thinking it. And I think for me, it's released a lot more of insightful and inspirational actions, because I'm still having the negative thinking telling me not to do it or that I'm not good enough, but I'm not really taking it so seriously. And so again, being human isn't being a superhuman. It's actually just being a super, human being.
I think what you mentioned about not taking things so personally, and I think that's something that, as we understand the nature of our own minds, you get a glimpse of the nature of other people's minds, and you start to see that when you're not feeling very good, you might not act very well. And so if someone else is acting out, even if it's towards you, you start to see that that's their thinking giving them an experience. What has that got to do with you? So suddenly that whole idea of being a victim falls away again, because it's not personal. It's not that they can make you feel bad. And I think as we see it first for ourselves and see how we get tricked by our own thinking. It's not to say there's not a world out there, there's not things happening in the world that we don't like, but when we settle down and realise that we get to experience it by our own thinking, I think we get to have an honest or a more truthful look at it. And I feel like that frees up space within us to have ideas of how to help the world, how to change things. So I see that there is suffering on this planet that I would love to wave a magic wand and make go away overnight. I can't do that. What I feel we've been doing with the movies and interviewing people and trying to show that as people wake up to their humanity, as people wake up to how we work, all of us as human beings, there's this potential and hope for humanity that I didn't think was possible. So I feel like in some small way I'm going to be part of the world changing, because I've seen the transformation in my own life. I've seen it in every person that has allowed us to interview them. From a 10-year-old child to somebody in their 80s to a prison inmate, to someone in a business, just across the board, people have opened their hearts and shared their story with us because they've been touched by this understanding and woken up to something deeper in us as human beings that goes beyond what we think, to that we think, that power is creating the human experience. So I think that in itself, to me, is, I am so hopeful for the planet, and I'm not blind to the suffering going on at the moment. But I can also see, you know, watching that TED talk, seeing how over the last 200 years or however long he's been doing this study, how it has changed, that things are improving. But because of the internet and because of the speed of that, we'd sometimes think that there was only terrible things happening in the world. But actually, there seems to be a lot of love and connection and incredible things happening in the world. And that's what I'm interested in. Mm. And I'm also interested in doing my bit, what little I can do to help, you know, be part of these kind of awful things not happening anymore.
Those of you who are now more intrigued, Jenny and Rudy's website is www.3principlesmovies.com, with that 3 written all the way out. I started mentioning that again because that kind of came to my head, just how much is there, that is this experience of just kind of a weight lifting off people's shoulders. I think that could be a good description, yeah.
I wanted to say thank you to you, Imogen, for hosting this event and for being inspired to do this. I think you know, it's these individuals, you know, choosing to do things like this, spreading the word, that's going to help change things. So I just wanted to say thank you for thinking to do it and for asking us to be speakers.
Yeah. Well, you think exactly the right people to ask. Yeah, yeah. We've still got a bit more time. Gosh, what to say? You've got a project out in Russia. That is the first I heard of this. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, we were lucky enough. A lady called Lana, and I won't try and say her second name because I'll get it completely wrong, reached out to us. She was living in Sweden. She's married to a guy called Peter, who's Swedish, and she asked if we could do a webinar where she would translate, and it was for people in Russia. So she has just been incredible. She has a website. She's been running webinars. We connected her to a few people that we knew that would do webinars. So she just said people are hungry for this now, that there's a desire for change and hope that this brings. So she's been incredible in taking this out there, and she's now trying to put together a project where we can go out to Russia and run seminars and workshops and have them translated.
It's really like, we've been to Dubai recently, in Sweden, and we're in New Zealand. I think globally people seem to be waking up that they don't have to do what they've always done, that there's something within all of us that is like a quiet voice that if you kind of go with it, it takes you to some quite amazing places. Like we can have our own connection to something beyond us. We can be happy and we can be well, no matter. I mean, literally, we have interviewed and spoken to people with the most crippling labels of psychosis and mental problems, and we've seen them transform. And the potential we all have, again, is that you go beyond what you thought before to the nature of how you think, and anything is possible. And so globally now we're really finding that people really want to connect to something beyond themselves, and you could call that any name you want. They have a birthright to be well and happy, and this really seems to be accelerating, getting out there globally, and I feel so absolutely honoured and blessed to be part of it.
No, I just found that I've heard your story a little bit about how Three Principles movie started off. It was just kind of, you just had this insight, this knowing to go and get good at using a camera, cinema stuff. And when you'd done that, only then did this new step come. And it's just, it's an interesting thing about just kind of following our noses as we get inspired, as we get put some of that thinking to one side. These little insights come up, and then you just kind of follow a path and then see how it leads, which, you know, I'm beginning to experience, and it's quite a way to live.
Yeah, I think what happened with this understanding, which we call the Three Principles, is that all of my life I was searching to become known, to be adored by people, to be thought of in a certain way, and it was all personal, like what can I get? And this understanding seemed to turn me upside down, and I kind of got disinterested in myself, in what I looked like, what I could get out of life and get people to think about me. And in the kind of space left over with all that egotistic thinking, was love. And kind of love asked me to create something that will be of benefit to other people. And I don't know, like, it just moved me forward. And so I still, again, like I said earlier, I still got a lot of negative thinking. You can't do it thinking. You haven't got the money thinking. It won't work thinking. But that kind of knowing, if you will, was kind of more in the driver's seat now. And so we created threeprinciplesmovies.com as a free resource for anybody in the world to see. You know, like, we've got the community project we spoke about, Modelo. We've got like a documentary about that. We've got interviews with people all over the world. We've got, you know, filming of the female prison inmates on there as well, because we wanted to kind of supply proof that what you think is possible as a human being far surpasses what you think. That if you think you're broken, think again. We wanted to kind of give evidence to people in the world that we are an amazing species of being, and when we get over the misunderstanding, the division, the delusion, the us and themness, we fall back into who we truly are, and it's not singular, it's plural. That we fall into the usness of all of us, and the division starts dissolving between him and her, right and wrong, and the only logical thing to do is to be of service. And I honestly feel so blessed to live a life in service of others, which surprisingly is working out really well for me and us personally. Like, I hadn't really thought it would. That's like an added benefit, I guess. But when I truly gave up on myself and focused more on how can I be of service, not because it was a good idea, not because it was the right thing to do, but because I just wanted to. Like, the logic of this steers you in a direction that is mutually beneficial for everybody, and you can't help but move with that. And that direction only really came when I saw the nature of what we're talking about, the three principles, clearer. And so I, again, you know, meeting Sydney Banks, the guy who pioneered this 10 years ago, set me on a course that was really life-changing for me. And yeah, I think I must be one of the luckiest people alive.
Anyway, we're on the hour, so I think you've given us plenty to not busy our minds with, but just sit and kind of contemplate and see what happens. It's been my great pleasure to speak to Rudy and Jenny Kennard this evening. Their website is www.movies.com, 3 written out in full. There's going to be a slight little glitch in a few hours. It may already be happening when the new Three Principles Movies website launches. But if you're on the email list for this webinar, then I'll send you an email when it's kind of stabilised. But do check it out just in case it's still there. And they also have innatewellbeing.co.uk this time, .co.uk, which is much more. They can help internationally, but there's some events that you'll need to come to the UK for. And I'm at www.hopecatalyst.com. If you're on the broadcast page, you'll find all the web addresses that people kindly helped us out for this webinar. They're all down there, so you can click on them there. Anything else to add, Jenny and Rudy?
Thanks to Michael Neal, author of Inside Out Revolution and Super Coach, I think his website's called, for kind of tweeting this out, I think, or emailing it out to let people know. So thanks, Michael. And again, thank you, Imogen, and the team that you've got to help you create these events. We love talking about this. So thanks for giving us the opportunity and thinking of us to do this.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you very much for the audience tonight. Now, we did have some sound problems. My experience is that if you do go back over the replay, many of them will iron out. Perhaps not the feedback at the beginning. I do apologise for that. But some of the kind of bits that were a bit slow and weird time differences, they should sort themselves out. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you found it useful and valuable and we got a few insights from it. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.